everyone, and welcome to Session 3 of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. My name is Randie Henderson, and I am one of the Black Feminist Reading Circle members of this online group. This session runs from January 20th until June 2nd and includes 2 week-long breaks. Our democratically selected reading material is Harriet A. Washington's book, Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. Our book group meets each Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 8 on the Google Plus Hangouts on Air platform. You may find the Global Black Feminist Reader Circle on Google Plus, YouTube, and Facebook, and always feel free to join us in reading our story together.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. My name is Venita Walker, and I will be your moderator for this evening. We will summarize and discuss Chapter 6 of The Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to Present. But first, we'll let everyone introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Edwina Marchenko.
And you're from?
I'm here in Utah now.
I am Michelle Odom. Welcome again to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. I'm one of the co-hosts here, along with Randie Danielle Henderson.
Hi everyone, I'm Randie and I'm watching from Atlanta.
I'm Geo Moses. I'm participating from Columbia, South Carolina. And wow, I'm glad to see all these new faces here tonight. It's going to be some conversation going on.
Yes.
All right.
Hi, I'm Kim Brandon, and I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Hi guys, this is Dawn.
Hi, Dawn.
Bringing you greetings from Columbia, South Carolina. Hello, George. Hello, Georgia homegirl.
As the Civil War approached, the South's stronghold of slavery was weakening. The North's industrialized economy was no longer dependent on the South for cheap labor, and the rest of the nation grew tired of the political power the 3/5 clause afforded the South. Internationally, the medical rationale for slavery was viewed as ignorant and self-serving. Pro-slavery Southerners attempted once again to justify the institution of slavery as domestic and international opposition to slavery mounted. In 1840, for the first time, the, quote, insane and idiots, unquote, as they were known in the 19th century, but now as the mentally ill and the intellectually challenged, were included in the U.S. Census. The results revealed that free blacks suffered higher mental illness than enslaved blacks. Thus, the cause of free blacks' mental illness was freedom.
Thank you, Kim. The Census of 1840 was designed to support the Southerners' argument for slave ownership. The census today is used to collect demographic data, population count, and for political purposes. The census data collected also determine how federal funding is distributed throughout the country for schools, hospitals, and a host of other services and projects. We can assume from our reading that census data is used to benefit those that collect it. Question number 5. Do you believe the data collected today is used to benefit blacks, education, medical care, etc., or is it used for some other not so obvious reasons?
I think it's used to enforce another agenda altogether.
You want to elaborate on that, Venita?
I think it's mostly the census is used to enforce other agendas in our community, other agendas to find out who's who in the community. I was, a teacher in Oakland, and they want to know who's in the community, how, what type of who. I've always, what I saw posted all the time was HIV posters and so forth, how to deal with HIV. And I always wondered why. Why was this posted at the bus stop next to a school, elementary school? They want to gear their advertisement at what they want to sell to us. So they want to know what the who's who in the community, the graphics of the community, the income brackets and so forth, so that they'll know what to sell, what they can sell to us in our communities, what they think that we might want to buy. And then also, like I said, the medical problems and so forth, the focus, I never forget this focus of the billboards, where not just, of selling alcohol and so forth, beer, but the main focus was on HIV, the HIV agenda.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big, problem over there where, I was living at that time. So, and it seemed like every week a new billboard, in that would go up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I remember listening to a speaker come, and he was talking about the school to prison pipeline. And he said that in New York, especially New York, they build prisons based on how many African American boys hit third grade. So that there's this way of skewing the numbers to kind of say, if we undereducate them, we can build prison beds for them. And this way we get them to free labor, and we're making all this money off of them. So I would just think that there would be more and more of these odd relationships between our population and other things that have to do with just pushing us toward herd. It's almost like a herd of cows where you're trying to herd us to something by denying us other services. So that's definitely my thought, is to undereducate and then build prisons. And so you really got to make sure that for me, is that your children are educated, that they sitting in front of a book, because nobody can. This is just my point of view. At some point, it's still your responsibility, even though you know the deck is stacked against you.
Yeah, I guess I think it's a catch-22 in a way, because I do think there are all kinds of things going on beneath the surface, as they were in the 1840 census, that this chapter is focused on. Yeah, I do think there are those kinds of agendas that are not immediately apparent to us. But then, as Venita put in the question, there are things that we do. I mean, that we do see that the census is used for. I think Edwina is absolutely right that part of it serves the needs of marketing
Thank you.
professionals in the business sector, but also on the nonprofit side, census data is used to determine what kinds of federal resources, money needs to go into various communities. So New York, that has that undoubtedly has a higher number and proportion of poor people than Utah, will get more federal dollars for housing, for food, for all of those kinds of things. And so because there's this positive or potentially positive outcome of the use of census data, then we kind of, we have to be careful that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by avoiding being counted in the census because we're leery of it because of the negative uses to which that same data can be applied. So, that's why I say it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on that, Randie? How you doing? Quiet over there this evening.
I'm sorry, I'm just irritated by all this technology. I haven't filled out a census yet because I haven't been old enough to. But I'm used to the general suspicion that it comes with in terms of when my grandparents have to fill it out or teachers. I do believe that it is still maybe used for other not so obvious reasons. Because I remember right around the time the last census, I remember we all found out that people within our zip code, my school zip code, like that whole neighborhood had HIV, or like that there was like the largest HIV population in at the time. It was like 2000. I was like a junior, 2009, that we all found that out because of the census. And so, obviously because things don't really get handled as time goes on, or there's not really much justice that comes with like a resolution in terms of the census that was 1841 till now. I'm absolutely sure that they still use it for reasons that are malicious. So.
That's a good word, malicious.
If I may say so, what comes to mind with me is that using census to know exactly where we are for those non-consensual medical experiments. And the reason why I say that is because as a child, I found out when I had my second son, Clint, 27 years ago. Well, it's an ordeal. I try to forget about it. 27 years ago, I thought I know my mother gave me all our booster shots. I have proof for our booster shots, and you have a couple series for German measles, measles and for measles. Well, I didn't know until I got pregnant with my son that I did not have inoculation for those, although she thought I had it. Then I started to really look into it and come to find out a lot of children in the South Philadelphia area, black children at that time, they were actually giving them saline shots. And the white children were getting the actual German measles shots. Once again, a lot of things that happen now, we'll be dead and our children will be reading about it 40 years from now. So I'm always leery about census because I've experienced where census can be used to know exactly where we're concentrated, so maybe you can get those unconsensual medical experiments in going to the back door. They're going to remember, they're going to get a body. They're going to get those bodies. They're going to get them whether they get them out the grave, whether they get them out the hospital, or they use trickery to get them. But they're going to get some bodies. So that's my thought. And I think a lot of times we have been given unproportionate amounts of federal funding and things that some of the other schools have been given in the more prestigious middle-class neighborhoods. And I still go back to that same situation. Is it because not because. They want to know how many of the brown people are in a certain area, so more funding for maybe low-income or poor people to be put in that area, or is it for other reasons?
Yeah.
Well, some other reasons besides that. Once again, privatizing prisons.
Yeah. And you know how I'm always talking about we need a 500-year plan. And, and a part of that is because I recognize that white folks do planning on a level that, I think most of us just really don't comprehend. Another a part of the data that comes out of any census is the migration patterns.
Yeah.
And so you had, a big migration going on after slavery, and now what we have are the displacements or the changes caused by gentrification. I'm in Brooklyn now, and I saw a film maybe a couple of years ago. It's called My Brooklyn, and it talks about it's dealing with gentrification, which is rampant in this area. But it looks at the history, and it looks at how the population of Brooklyn have shifted over the decades. And like going back to maybe like the 1940s or so, tell me if I'm wrong, Kim, if you know, but around 1940s, 1950s, where it was primarily a white population in Brooklyn. And then the bankers had actually had plans to move the white people out to the suburbs and to start moving the black people into the inner city. And so they started changing the ways loans were given. You were given incentives, financial incentives to go out to the suburbs. It's not just that all the white people wanted to flee the city because black people were coming in, but they were getting financial incentives to leave the city. And now they're getting financial incentives to come back into the city.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of plans that are on the drawing board decades and decades in advance. And the census data helps to do that kind of planning.
Yes, so it is a tool used by the federal government and federal and state, local government. It's a tool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's true.
Wow, now.
I just wanted to add to your point, Venita. I think that even when there are monies targeted for poor neighborhoods where poor populations live, you'd be amazed how much of that money gets skimmed off the top.
Oh, I'm not amazed.
So yeah, you might get 25 cents on the dollar in a poor neighborhood, but there's a whole lot of heads that get greased before there's a chicken in a can of food stamps open up somewhere for some poor person.
Yeah.
And then they wind up paying, so much for that little product until it's insane.
Well, I grew up in the city of Philadelphia, and we had a gangster, Mayor Rizzo, and he was a gangster. That ran the city. So anybody that grew up in the city of Philadelphia knows that money is divided up, paid off, under, and around, and by the time it gets to where it should go, is maybe a nickel left. That's called the Peter Pan syndrome.
Yep.
So that's been going on for, and I remember that as a child because he was a gangster. So yeah,
but that's not the Peter Pan syndrome. Peter Pan syndrome is being a grown man acting like a little boy till the day you die.
I wasn't trying to go. He should always like go somewhere else.
Oh, you mean the Chris Christie syndrome, in other words?
Chris Christie.
Yes. Yes.
Y'all should stop.
The grown man acting like a little boy.
Stop it. Stop it.
Yes, exactly.
What I meant was sometimes Rizzo would kind of skim some off the top for him and his boys, and then takes a little bit from the ones that had and drops them down the city, which kept them kind of quiet and feeling good. Where in actuality, they should have been getting 70% of that money, and they would get 20, but they didn't know no better.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they thought the 20 was what they're supposed to be getting. That's what I meant by the Peter Pan syndrome. And at that point, in those times, a lot of gangsters are running cities. Not that I live in Connecticut, so I can't say it. We have the most corrupt state. I think the second most corrupt state in the nation, and we're only this big.
Yeah.
There are 10 people here, and all 10 is corrupt. Every mayor goes to jail. Everybody. Every governor goes to jail. I mean, you know, all of them in jail. We got one that's going back to jail twice. He was in jail. No, he came out, and he had Governor Rowland. He on his way back. but no, it's the truth. Like we have, at one point, we were the worst corrupt, the most corrupt state in the nation, and we are small. But anyways, do you have any more thoughts so we can move on?
I think that when you're talking about the corrupt mayors, nobody ever says, is that because they used to be slaves, or is that because they're black, or is that, you know, so when it's us, it's all of this, it has to be something with our race as opposed to us as people.
Right.
Of course. Of course.
Maybe it's because they're free men, and free men are insane.
You know what, Kim?
Yeah.
I can't go there right now, but Michelle and I had that discussion. Y'all can't be making it out while we have the book circle meeting, Randie.
That's my brother.
Well, me look like Paul. I'm like, Paul, what's she doing?
No, he didn't realize I had the video up. That's why I told him to look.
Oh, okay.
So you can see.
I thought it was Paul. I always saw like a part of it real quick, like he likes it brown too. And I was like, what's she doing?
No.
Okay. All right.